Welcome back to The Turnaround. I'm Natalie Flores, and this show is here to help managers go from short-staffed to stand out and be the kind of leader people want to stay for. How? By reducing turnover with integrity, clear communication, smart scheduling, and patience. This is episode 4, Changing the Expectations for the 9-to-5 Grind. Today we're diving into one of the biggest things always on our mind, our schedule. Whether it's our main life schedule, work schedule, school schedule, time is what we're constantly managing. Where do we need to go? What time do we have to leave? When do we eat? What time do I have to go to sleep? Time is everything, and it's in our thoughts almost every second that we're awake. And just to keep this super simple, the two most important schedules are our personal time and our time at work. Both matter, yet finding the balance is our daily, gut-wrenching challenge. Think about the math for a second. Most of us spend about, 8 to 9 hours at work, plus another hour commuting. Then, that's going to be close to about 10 hours of the day already gone just for work. And then at home, we might get 14 hours technically, but 7 or 8 of those are spent sleeping, if we're lucky. So when you strip it down, our true waking hours are split almost evenly between work and home. And the way we schedule them, that kind of lets us know which side is going to get the short end of the stick. So where does the 9-to-5 come into play? Well, for a long time, this has just been the standard in the working world. Those are the hours we've been told we have to work, and that's pretty much it. And for a while, that schedule didn't really work. Now, even though there are a wide variety of schedules, the 9-to-5 is going to be the most dominant one. And when the 9-to-5 schedule was first introduced, we lived in a very different time. Back then, life was simpler, and it was a lot more manageable. And if you didn't know, the 9-to-5 came into play in 1938 when the Fair Labor Standards Act was passed. And it just cemented the 40-hour work week as the standard. And that's pretty much where the 9-to-5 was born. And to add to my Snapple fact here, and just for a little bit of context, gas prices in the late 1930s were about 18 to 20 cents a gallon. What a time. And that's what I mean by simpler times. But the real reason that act came into play was because of the Industrial Revolution. People were being worked to exhaustion, literally to the bone. And it needed to change. And with the push from the working class, we got that change. And that is what we have today. By the mid-20th century, the 8-hour day, 40-hour work week just symbolized stability and the middle-class lifestyle. And let's be real, times have changed. For example, gas in California is now, depending on what part of California you live in, it's going to be around $5 a gallon. And economists estimate that the cost of living has increased by nearly 2,000% since the 1930s. So yeah, life has gotten 2,000% more expensive, but our work schedules are stuck in the past. This mismatch is what is fueling all of our stress, and that is what we carry every single day. And it's exactly why the call for real work-life balance is louder than ever. Wanting shorter or more flexibility in our schedule isn't about people not wanting to work. It's about creating a system that actually fits the world we live in now. It's time to stop working under the same job standards we had back in the 1930s. So if you feel like you're failing because you just can't get ahead financially, I just want you to take a deep breath and just know it's not your fault, okay? The numbers prove it. 2,000% is a little crazy. But, we're living in a time where there's a power struggle between the hours we're expected to work and the money we actually receive from work. For most of us, the math just ain't mathin'. We're not making enough to match the time we're actually giving. For the service industry, and there's already a wide variety of schedules out there. There's the overnight shift, the morning shift, the mid shift, the night shift, the late night shift. Flexibility exists. And here's the problem. As Chef Samin Nosrat put it perfectly, The industry is known for squeezing as much as they can from as little as possible. That's the culture we've been stuck in, whether it's the traditional 9 to 5 or the 10 to 12 hour management shift. Both eat up our time, both drain our energy, and both of those things just keep us from showing up in life fully. Now, younger me had no issue with these schedules, but now, as a parent, my perspective really has changed, and honestly, it's for the better. I realize that while the past is behind us, the future is still ahead. In the future, it's going to include my daughter, and I don't want her growing up in the same kind of working world we've kind of just accepted as normal. I don't want that, and I don't think you want that either. We actually don't even want that for ourselves, so, let's put 2 and 2 together. And that's where my passion for pushing change comes from. Because here's the reality. We condition kids early to tolerate the same schedule. They're in school, for about 6 to 7 hours a day. Most parents work a 9 to 5 schedule. And if their kids are in after-school care until 6 because their parents get out of work at 5, they spend 9 to 10 hours away from home. That's actually longer than their parents spend at work. Talk about a gut punch. No parent wants to be in that position. No person who has no children wants to be put in that position, okay? I think we're all in the same boat in that one. But so many of us are forced into it because we're just trying to survive. So it's not just parents, it's the same for everyone. People that are in school or anyone just trying to advance in life. They often have to pick between school and work because there's usually some kind of conflict between the two. Both are tough to balance with the demands of the working world we have today. But it doesn't have to be that way. And in today's reality, most families and most people, they have to work, if not one, multiple jobs. And many people have to prioritize work over education just to make ends meet. So we end up spending more of our lives just getting by instead of truly living. And that's why rethinking the way we schedule work is more than just about ourselves. It's not because this generation is lazy and just doesn't want to work. We're pushing for new scheduling standards because the old ones just don't fit the future we're creating. And as a manager, I've also lived through those, 10 to 12 hour back-to-back days. In my experience, that type of schedule wears people down quickly. It takes away from family life and personal goals. And over time, it drains both the person and the quality of their work. Yes, we can see it, okay? We know you're doing your best, but it is affecting it. And, sure, sometimes a long day is unavoidable, depending on what type of management position you are in the service industry. But if it becomes a constant, then it's just going to be a fast track to exhaustion. And let's be real, as I get older, the 10 to 12 hour shifts are nothing to gloat about. If anything, now they're just a little bit of a warning sign. If you're already working a 10 to 12 hour shift, it's worth pausing to reflect. Why is this the standard? And is it truly necessary every single day? And I know you ask yourself that before you go into work. Super valid. And since you're already asking yourself those questions, I want to challenge you to answer these questions as well. Ask yourself, why am I here? What is keeping me here? And most importantly, how can I only be here when I'm truly needed? Or how can my shift tomorrow just be a 5 to 6 hour instead of a 10? So let's stop accepting the 10 to 12 hour back-to-back shifts as normal, okay? The best thing about the service industry is just the huge variety of scheduling possibilities. Don't give yourself the hardest one. We know you're the boss, but the boss needs some time off too. And the truth is, we rarely use them unless we're short-staffed or we're scrambling for a backup plan. So instead of having it be a backup plan, let's have it be our main plan. Too often, the reason why we keep saying we can't have a flexible schedule is really just because of our lack of planning. But that's what I'm here for, to help you have a better plan, to have a better schedule, so we can be a little less crazy. Because the truth is, flexibility shouldn't be the last resort. It should be the baseline. We'll get into those, more serious scenarios as the episode goes along, but for now, let's focus on 3 of the most common schedules out there, which are going to be your hourly schedules, salary schedules, and the 10 to 12 hour salary schedules. Okay, let's go over it. What needs to change so we can stop accepting this 9 to 5 grind? And to do that, you need to answer these questions. What work actually needs to get done? How many hours does it realistically take? And how can schedules be designed to reflect both the company needs and employees' well-being? A couple of people that I really look up to in the business world who really follow this structure is Michael Hyatt. I do recommend his book, A Vision-Driven Leader. I think that gives like a really awesome perspective. And if you're looking for something a little bit more challenging, there's also Cody Sanchez. She's like a legit boss, as well as Alex Hermosi. I think just those 3 and the way they view how things can really truly get done in a productive way are super inspiring and kind of help remove any of the excuses we might have as to why things are currently being done the way they are. If anyone knows me, I love planning. And one big thing I always include in my planning, whether it be personal time or work time, is I always plan for wiggle room. When I just leave that space, I can handle the last minute hiccups with, a little bit more patience and grace instead of stressing out because my plate was way too full and I was hoping that nothing bad could happen, because when has that ever worked out? And the same idea applies to scheduling. What if instead of locking into 5 8-hour days, you build in flexibility? So let's look at the 3 most common schedules in the service industry and how they can evolve. The 3 most common are going to be the 9 to 5 salary, the 10 to 12 hour salary positions, which are usually the manager ones, and then there's also the hourly shifts. So let's get into that. So number 1, the traditional 9 to 5 style schedule. This classic model is the 40-hour work week, where you have the 5 8-hour shifts. But here are 2 alternatives you can test out the next time you make your schedule. And this can still cover all of your needs. You can do 3 8-hour shifts and 2 6-hour shifts, or you can do 2 8-hour shifts and 3 6-hour shifts. Now, in case you were wondering, Natalie, that doesn't add up to 40. I know that. That's the point. I'm trying to make work more manageable within our life, where we can still get the same work done in a more manageable time that meets the standards of our lives. And doing that is going to require this type of schedule. If I knew that I can work 2 full shifts and 3 6-hour shifts, I can be so much more productive at work and be so much more productive outside of work. And let me tell you, I will be a much happier person to be around. And that is the goal. And I know I'm not the only person who would be a lot happier too. So these are just the small adjustments on how to cut those wasted hours, add breathing room, and still hit the same productivity target. So let's take away the hours we waste at the water station or the snack room and spend it somewhere else that's a lot more meaningful. All right, number 2 on the list is going to be the 10 to 12 hour schedule. Now, let's talk about those heavy 10 to 12 hour shifts. Sometimes they're unavoidable, whether you're a manager in a restaurant or if you're like an event manager. There's just going to be times where there's honestly just no way around it. You have load in, load out. The event is the whole weekend. Restaurants, your busiest time is going to be the weekends. So that's what I mean by they're unavoidable. You kind of just have to be there. But instead of being there for 50 to 60 hours, which is currently the standard, here are some alternatives that are just going to make work a lot more pleasant to be at while still being able to be there during those demanding times. So there's going to be option A. You can do 2 long shifts, the 2 back-to-back 10 to 12 hour shifts, 1 6-hour shift to follow, and then 1 8-hour shift after that. Now there's also option B, where you can do 1 10 to 12 hour shift, 1 6-hour shift, 1 8-hour shift, and then at the end, you're going to tag on another 10 to 12. And then option C could be 3 back-to-back long shifts, those 10 to 12s. And then the rest of the week, you are off. If you do need to check in, it is literally just as like what are the takeaways? What needs to be adjusted? Let's apply that to the next thing. And these 3 schedules are guaranteed to work for those who are managers in the service industry or those who are in event planning, and you just have those shows where you have to be there that long and they have to be back to back. But what this schedule provides for you is that you don't have to give 50 to 60 hours a week. That is what this setup does. Okay, this setup is actually going to land you between that 34 to 38 hours within the week. And what that's going to do, it's going to challenge you to be more productive and to be there in a meaningful way and not just be a body being there because you have to. Okay, that doesn't bring any advantage to the company. It doesn't bring any advantage to your work, especially if you have to be there 50 to 60 hours. I've done that schedule. You're like partially there because you're so drained. So work these 3 options. You have 3 different choices. It's a fantastic variety. You are still going to be there to meet the demands within that peak time. And it also gives you that moment of when you know you can get that breath of air that you desperately need. Because nothing is worse than having to do multiple back-to-back shifts, thinking you're going to get a break, and then something random comes up, and then you have to add on one more long shift. That is the ultimate gut punch. I know I keep saying that in the show, but man, I'm telling you, it is not an easy thing to do when you think you're coming up for air and it's a quick no. But hey, you're still going to be there when you have to be there, and you're going to see a huge difference in your energy, how you make decisions, as well as your retention, because you are able to manage things better and you are going to hold yourself to, hey, this is when I'm going to be there. This is what I'm going to do at this time. You have my full attention, and that is going to give you the results that you want to give. Because well-rested or somewhat rested Natalie is very different from the overworked, just powering through, trying to survive Natalie. Option 1 is way better. Now on to our final scheduling option, which is going to be number 3, the hourly shifts. Hourly roles face a whole different challenge. Most of them still don't pay a livable wage, which means people need a second job just to get by. And this is where the biggest change has to happen. Too many companies are still holding on to those old school standards of you have to work a full 8-hour shift, or even worse, a lot of companies still have their employees sign a paper saying that they can't even have a second job, which is just unrealistic, okay? Now, if they were able to have a livable wage, that, on paper, that sounds great. That's not a problem at all. But let's be honest. It's not great if you're not paying people enough to live on. If all you can offer is hourly positions, that's okay. But you need to be the most flexible if that is all you can give. Expecting someone to give you 8 hours, or even if you are offering those 4 to 6 hour shifts, but you're not timing it in a way where somebody can still go have that second job and they can make it there on time, what's the point? It's probably why that job isn't getting filled as quickly as it used to, because you're not offering that flexibility, and you're not also keeping in mind that if this person has to get a second job, how can they get there? And will they get there in time? That's not something that can be left at the door, just to be super clear. That is something I think us as managers need to start being more mindful of and receptive of. That is our responsibility to keep that in mind so we can be fully staffed, and also making sure that our team is able to show up the way we expect them to and not show up stressed out. Because we do contribute to that when we don't offer that type of flexibility or options within our schedule. But because so many people are still operating on that old school way of scheduling or just the leave it at the door mindset, that is why we're seeing so many like fast food and retail employees going on strike, because it's the same revolution we had for the Industrial Revolution we're having now. So what side do you want to be on? A 9-to-5 schedule is over a century old. So forcing people to live under that same standard today without any flexibility isn't just outdated, it's cruel at this point. The new standard for hourly jobs should make room for real life, enough time to transition from one job to the other, or to go to school, or to pick up their kids, or just to get home to be helpful with those that they live with. People shouldn't have to spend their whole day tied up in one place that isn't even going to offer them to survive. I know there's a lot going on in your day, so I did make up some options of what that schedule can look like for those on your team who are hourly. So you can have these few options. You have schedule A, which is going to be your day-evening split. You can offer a 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift, and this is going to offer them to be able to work a job later in the evening. It can be like a 5 to 9 job. Schedule B is going to be for school and family balance. So that would be like a 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and then space for classes or school pickup. And then you have your other option later on in the evening, which is going to be a 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. shift. Okay. Another schedule that's going to be more evening focused would be a 4 to 9 p.m. shift. That's going to leave their mornings free for school, family, or whatever their other side hustle is. Okay. Option D would be for your late night dinner shift. That can be from 4:15 to 11 o'clock at night. That is going to give your team the option to have their mornings and their middays open for school, childcare, or that second job. And then you have your final schedule, which is going to be your late night dinner shift. Again, that could be starting at 4 o'clock. You can also not even have the shift start at 4. You can even have it start a little bit later at 6 o'clock, just so that way, if there's that transition period where you just can't come in at 4, because it still is a little early for some people, being able to push it till 6 and do like 6 to midnight and past, that is a great little schedule. And those are going to be, your peak closing times. And that's going to be the ultimate schedule to offer that balance that your team is looking for. Because they're going to have the whole day pretty much free, so they can do all the things that they need to, be where they need to be, but also be there for you for the schedule that you can provide to them. And these 4 to 6 hour blocks, or even just the longer evening shifts, which are structured, they're going to be structured intentionally. And the reason for that is it's just going to help everyone and give you the balance that you're really looking for. It keeps companies compliance with what their needs are, with labor laws. It's going to also help you avoid break violations and actually support the lives of the people who are just working for you. And none of this is laziness. This schedule is purely for survival, and so people can thrive and do better in life while you are still able to meet the demands of your job and have people there when you need them. And that is the area I want to push the most for. And if you're a manager wondering just how to even map this out, I'm sure you're probably listening to this and you're like, I don't even have a pen and paper. Natalie, how am I going to write this down? Don't worry, I gotcha. I made another free guide for you, and the free guide is going to be in the show notes. It's called The Balance Blueprint, Shift by Shift Scheduling to Work Smarter, Not Longer. Inside, you'll find a simple process to break down your team's time, your time, and to see where the hours are actually really going. And you could also test it out to see just which schedule is going to work best for you. And we can also walk through it together in case you have any questions. So go ahead and grab it, and you'll see how simple it is to build flexibility within your workspace. And I know a main reason why we put it off in the first place is because we feel like we just don't have time or energy or the thought process to do it. Not saying that you're not capable, it's just your plate is already full, and I'm here to make it a little less full and to make your life a lot smoother. At the end of the day, scheduling is more than just filling shifts. It's about designing a work life that actually works. When managers lead with flexibility and intention, people just don't stay, they thrive. And that's the kind of change that will carry this industry forward. So, if you're listening and thinking, that sounds good, but it's just not realistic for my team, you know what? I want to challenge you the most. The reality is, we've been running off a model that's nearly 100 years old. If other countries and industries can change, so can we. It starts with one manager willing to try something new, and I'm here to do it with you so that way. Because why not? We all need a support system, and that's what I'm here for. So, I got you. Okay, you don't have to do this alone. I'm here with you. Thanks for tuning in to The Turnaround. If this episode resonated with you, hit the subscribe button and stay connected. And hey, make sure to sign up for my email list, okay? You'll get updates on upcoming episodes, quick recaps of past discussions, exclusive sneak peeks at the tools I've developed to help managers build a better workplace. And remember, other countries are already moving towards a shorter work week and flexible schedules, so let's go ahead and meet them there because we need it. And the best thing about it is they're seeing great results from it, so why not? If they can do it, so can we. It's time we stop pretending that the 1930s schedule still works in today's world. Let's build a workplace where people want to be. Until next time, lead with integrity. And remember, the glass isn't half full or half empty. Sometimes it's just broken and you're ready for an upgrade. Take care of yourself and your team. You got this. We'll see you next time. This episode is sponsored by the Mini Baker Co., miniature cakes for people and dogs. This podcast is also sponsored by Natalie Flores Voiceover Services.